This year, we have been counting down the top 50 games released on the 8th generation of consoles. For this list, we've considered new games or ground-up remakes released on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, Wii U, 3DS, and PlayStation Vita. So far, we've run through the 40 games we think deserve recognition over the last console cycle. But now, as we sit on the cusp of next-gen, it's time to crown the top 10 games that left an impact unlike any other this generation.
With Guerrilla Games developing their first-person shooter IP Killzone for nearly a decade and a half, we were all pretty unsure if their next game would really be just another Killzone. Killzone has never truly lit the gaming world on fire, meaning that other than Guerrilla's impressive Decima engine, neither have they. That is, until 2017, with the release of their brand new IP for the PS4, Horizon Zero Dawn. Horizon Zero Dawn was so much more than what Killzone ever was, with it garnering their highest Metacritic score since 2009. Its interesting story about civilization in the modern day, learning about the high-tech and futuristic life of the past, main protagonist Aloy not only learning about the old world, but also who she truly is, and the machines, it's all woven into a deeply satisfying action RPG game, along with a vast and diverse open world. Its combat with machines, in my opinion, is the best part of the game. It really does require you to know each machine to be able to become victorious in combat. Horizon Zero Dawn is such an impressive first game in a new franchise, and although the game excels in narrative and combat while lacking in facial animations and traversal mechanics, Horizon Zero Dawn's sequel, Horizon Forbidden West, coming to PS5 and PS4, is set to be an easy way to expand and improve the offering from Horizon Zero Dawn given to us in 2017.
At the beginning of this generation, developer Sucker Punch delivered somewhat of an underwhelming experience with infamous Second Son. Don't get me wrong, it was a good game, but it didn't necessarily stand up to the developer's excellent predecessors on previous generations of PlayStation consoles. Thankfully, Sucker Punch closed out this generation with its best game yet, Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost nails it on all fronts. It tells a captivating story that keeps you invested as you follow Samurai Jin Sakai's descent to become the Ghost. Jin's upbringing under a strict code of honor is shaken, and his journey to do what's needed, but not necessarily what's right, is emotionally complex. What's especially praiseworthy about Ghost of Tsushima is its incredible sword combat. There are 4 combat stances that correspond with specific enemy types. In combat, you can switch to a different stance in the blink of an eye to quickly dispatch enemies. It allows for a level of strategy I've never experienced in a game like this, and it makes for one of the most fun gameplay systems on the PlayStation 4.
Announced in 2015 after nearly 2 decades of dreaming from fans, Final Fantasy VII Remake was a unicorn of an announcement, and arguably no project since then has come close to meeting its earth-shattering, dream-making reveal. That's all well and good, but often remakes have a chance to leave fans of the source dissatisfied, and only covering 1/10 of the story in the full Final Fantasy VII saga, Remake manages to defy expectations, prove its existence, and fleshes out the world of Midgar to a full title. Spanning 40 to 60 hours, players are thrown into the middle of a rebellious act of eco-terrorism. Cloud Strife introduces players new and old to the world of Mako energy, corporations, and dreams of outer space, while the reimagining of combat to find a perfect balance of active and turn-based mechanics, fleshing out the smoggy city, and rich portrayals of many core party members would be enough to earn this title a top 10 spot. It's the risks 7 Remake takes that made us sure of its placement. Being bold enough to take liberties with the story so beloved by fans, implement lore from titles like Crisis Core and other supplementary materials, and the game itself recognizing what it means to be Final Fantasy VII Remake. Playing with expectations to keep fans new and old questioning what's to come next for our party is incredibly exciting, and a risk we would love to see remakes reach for more often.
It's hard to imagine Rockstar outdoing itself after the first Red Dead Redemption, but it did just that with its sequel, Red Dead Redemption 2. Set in the waning days of gunslingers in the Wild West, Red Dead 2 tells a decidedly heartfelt story in an otherwise lawless time. Arthur Morgan, the game's protagonist, is the standout character, who acts as the spiritual leader of the game's gang of outlaws. Arthur guides many of his fellow posse members away from the misery of their lives of crime to more peaceful ones. Aside from some excellent storytelling is a vibrantly realized open world that begs to be explored. Hunting and other challenges that boost your character's stats are fun and rewarding distractions. In the random instances you'll discover in the world, keep the game feeling fresh, even after 100 hours of gameplay. Red Dead Redemption 2 is easily Rockstar's best story, and it features a world that deserves continued exploration. While it might not have told the story fans were expecting, Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain is nonetheless an amazing game and one of the best entries in the Metal Gear franchise. MGS5 fulfills the tactical espionage action promise that the series has been perfecting since the first Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation. Let's not mince words here. Metal Gear Solid 5 features some of the best gameplay of any third-person action game to this day. The game perfectly accomplishes what it intends to offer players: a deep stealth experience that rewards smart decisions and challenges players to improve their skills. MGS5 is all about building upon itself. Whether it's Mother Base, your arsenal of weapons, or your buddies, the game encourages you to refine your tactics to take on progressively more difficult challenges as the narrative advances. The moment-to-moment gameplay in particular is one of the best gameplay loops in the history of gaming. After you prepare for your mission, you're flown into a wide open map where you can approach your target however you want. Agency and independence are paramount in Metal Gear Solid 5, and it allows you to switch up your style whenever the situation calls for improvisation. If this is Hideo Kojima's last Metal Gear game, then he will have left on a phenomenal high note.
The last decade has seen the emergence of a handful of new genres: roguelikes, games as a service, and of course, Souls-likes. From Software debuted the genre with the PlayStation 3 exclusive Demon's Souls, and it found difficulty in achieving more than cult classic status. With the emergence of Dark Souls and a chance to release multi-platform, From was able to refine its gameplay to create a new genre notable for its challenge and lore-based storytelling. This formula was able to be redefined yet again and perfected in the PlayStation 4 exclusive Bloodborne, a filthy, haunting realization of a world rife with disease and Lovecraftian cosmic horror. Stepping into the role of a hunter tasked with purging the streets of Yharnam of infected foul beasts, players are faced with winding streets, sewers, old buildings, and more, full of challenging opponents. The bosses of Bloodborne are no doubt part of the main appeal. However, the gothic horror design present in many of its areas, and the surprises From throws your way both environmentally and in terms of enemy design, make the world truly feel like a nightmare. It's an aesthetic that few games attempt to go for, and nailing it this hard makes it stand out on that front. If its environmental and enemy designs weren't impressive enough, having an incredibly precise combat system that is one of the smoothest and most thrilling of any game regardless of generation. There's also the tragic story of Yharnam and its inhabitants, there to imprint itself in your memory should you be curious enough to pursue what truly plagues the city on the night of the hunt.
If you're going to take Nathan Drake on the adventures of Uncharted 1, 2, 3, and yes, even Golden Abyss, Uncharted 4: A Thief's End had to nail the ending while offering a worthwhile adventure. So even with Uncharted 4 going through a huge shift in the middle of the game's development, with Amy Hennig leaving and Neil Druckmann coming in to wrap up the game's development, it was fantastic. On this adventure, Nathan Drake deals with a lot more of worldly issues in terms of having pressure applied in the question of, is this all worth it? What are we even doing here? That reveals the human side of our favorite quick-witted treasure hunter. It really shows the cost of his adventurous nature in terms of the people around him, from Sully to the newly introduced into the series Sam Drake, and the one that hit the most home for me personally was Elena. And the cutscene where Nathan is telling Elena what he thinks went down in this huge dining hall on Libertalia, it truly shows Nathan Drake is an explorer and lives for the thrill of treasure, which with her taking that in and understanding that, it definitely has huge implications for the game's end and where the game leaves the two upon credits rolling. With its explorative design from the usual Uncharted design, the best enemy in the series, and one of PS4's best looking games, Uncharted 4: A Thief's End was truly great. And don't even get me started on that epilogue. They end the Nathan Drake story in the best possible way. I love the ending. I think it's phenomenal, and to me it is one of PS4's best games out there. taking the God of War games to an entirely different mythos from the Greek world to the Norse mythology following the events of God of War 3, changing the camera perspective and combat to be a familiar third-person perspective in the vein of The Last of Us and other major PlayStation games, and our favorite god Kratos growing a full beard and exchanging the blades for an axe. On paper, God of War 2018 was quite possibly the furthest thing we have ever seen from a traditional God of War game. So how did it become the best? How did Sony Santa Monica take a largely believed dead IP all the way to the top of the Game of the Year in 2018? God of War 2018 did what the previous games tried to do in rage and action instead of using clarity and more of a humanness to these emotions. They turned Kratos from a god to a man, and it allowed everyone to connect with him on a much deeper way as we took the journey with Kratos on an undiscovered and new land to not only himself, but us as well as the players. The journey was nothing without the characters along the way, like Brock, Sindri, and of course the great Mimir. But the one character beyond Kratos that shines brighter is Atreus. He truly is the conduit to getting to know Kratos as a human and how he has changed from his younger self. Atreus allows us to see that Kratos is no longer an uncontrollable monster. He's a god that uses his god ability through the lens of a human restraint, to use your mind and conversation first rather than your physical power. It calls for a game that propels a series to address and see new avenues while still feeling like God of War. And upon God of War's conclusion, the sequel announced for PS5 could not possibly come sooner.
Thanks to improvements in the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One hardware over their predecessors, this generation saw an increase in open-world titles. Unfortunately, not much innovation was made in terms of open-world design, aside from how big can it be. However, Nintendo did what they often do best: raise the bar for the industry. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild not only redefined a series set on its core foundation since 1991's A Link to the Past, it redefined open worlds in a way we've only recently seen impact the industry. Breath of the Wild takes a hands-off approach to player progression, and while the story is relegated to flashbacks of the past to account for this, the story of Breath of the Wild is much more the tale of each player's individual journey with Link as they travel across Hyrule to purge the land of Calamity Ganon. Out the gate, introducing players to a physics-based world of puzzles and giving every tool necessary to complete said puzzles, the game lets you tackle the journey how you want. Want to head straight for the final boss after you get your tools? Go for it, but good luck. Want to travel to the Gerudo Valley and tame the dinosaur-looking divine beast? Have at it. The beauty of Breath of the Wild is the respect it has for its players. Your hand won't be held. Your creativity can flourish to solve each and every puzzle, and much like manipulating your tools to solve puzzles your way, the journey you accompany Link on is greater than any narrative that could have been crafted. The world of Hyrule is the most realized it's ever been, and it's full of secrets for you to uncover. Each expedition rewards you with materials, stories, side quests, and upgrades. No other game is as successful in making a journey of progress feel more unique and rewarding. The more you put into the game, the more of its secrets you uncover, the better off you are when it's time to face off against the final boss. My journey came to a close after completing all 120 shrines, activating all the divine beasts, which allowed the final boss's health to be halved, obtaining Link's classic outfit and a master sword in hand. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a rewarding journey unlike any other, and the new bar for open world design.
When it released in 2013, The Last of Us changed the video game landscape for the better. With a perfect synthesis of engaging gameplay and enthralling storytelling, The Last of Us proved that games could be so much more than hollow entertainment. Naughty Dog nailed it again with The Last of Us Part 2, telling a gripping tale that takes daring and ultimately fulfilling risks. For a majority of the game, we follow Ellie as she loses her identity in an attempt to exact justice. The naivety and relative innocence of a character we grew to love in the first game is all but lost by the sequel's end. After a lengthy section of Ellie's time in Seattle, the story follows Abby, who reconciles her own quest for revenge after the deed is done. It's here that Part 2's brilliance really shines through. A character that players are designed to hate blooms into a caring woman focused on rehabilitation. She reclaims her identity and denounces the monster she let herself turn into. Aside from cementing games as a powerful medium, Part 2 focuses on making gaming an accessible space for everyone. The first thing players are met with when they initially boot up the game is a robust accessibility menu, which offers presets for vision, hearing, and motor accessibility. It's a groundbreaking move that greatly pushes the industry toward more accessibility in games. Naughty Dog is undeniably one of the best developers in the industry. It closed the last generation with a perfect swan song in The Last of Us, and only Naughty Dog could outdo itself 7 years later with the best game this generation, The Last of Us Part 2.
'Cause I'm wrong.
And there you have it. Those are our picks for the top 10 best games of this generation. We hope you've enjoyed walking the road to next gen alongside us, because we definitely have. If you missed any of our other lists or would like to see our top 50 in full, there is a playlist titled Once in a Generation on youtube.com/joyclicks. But be sure to let us know what you thought of our picks down below in the comments. Did you agree? And what do you think are the best 10 games of the generation? If you enjoyed our list or are new, be sure to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe for more lists like this one in the future. And if you'd like to get involved further, consider going to patreon.com/joyclicks, where for $1, $2, or $5 you get a variety of rewards, including producer credit like Chris Sakas and Aaron Easton. So, thank you all, and until next gen, it's pizza time.